tutors, mentors, and the city with your host.com.
The City Tutors presents
Tutors, mentors, and the city
with your host.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Kevin.com Brown, and welcome to Tutors, Mentors, and the City. And please join me in welcoming our guest for this episode, Miss Cristina Garcia. Yay! Cristina, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. So I am on day 121 of a Duolingo streak, right? And I'm working on mi español.
Oh,
So when I see your name, I feel compelled to roll my R's. Cristina Garcia, right?
beautiful.
I feel compelled to do that. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Duolingo does not prepare me for my neighborhood, okay? I 121 day streak. I go to the place to get my tire fixed. The guy speaks no English. I speak no Spanish. And I can't understand a word this dude is saying. It's like, Duolingo, you are failing me. And I'm from the South Bronx. So this is I don't know, Duolingo speaking some other kind of Spanish, right?
Right.
So I can't go any further in my Espanol conversation with you other than Cristina Garcia. That's it.
That's good enough for today.
Now, all that being said, I don't know if you've seen our episodes, but I do no research. I like to get to know my guests the same way our viewers are, so I can ask questions from that perspective.
Perfect.
So my question is going to be, Cristina Garcia, who are you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am a first generation Latina from Queens. My parents, like many other Colombians, came to Jackson Heights from Colombia. And so I was born and raised in Queens. I am a City College alumni. I went to City College for both my undergrad and my master's. So I'm a very proud CUNY alum. And I've spent the last 8 years or so working in the climate change space. So in the sustainability industry. And that's a big part of who I am, because it's a big, passion of mine. I'm very fortunate to be able to work in what I'm, passionate about and what I care about. I have recently moved to New Jersey. I had to leave Queens, my home, but it's expensive, and I wanted to kind of set down some roots. So I've moved to Jersey over the past 2 years, where I live with my husband. And yeah, that's who I am.
Okay, so New Jersey ain't cheap either, right?
No, nothing is cheap, but New York City it's hard. It's hard for New Yorkers to stay in New York, and it's really a shame.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Okay, so let's talk about this climate change thing.
Yeah.
What do we need to know about climate change?
Oh man, it's happening. It's happening, and we need all hands on deck. We need a lot of ambitious action to really protect ourselves from the worst climate hazards, which we've already seen. So I'm gonna, stick to New York, because I'd imagine that's where the majority of the audience is from, and that's what I've seen happen firsthand. But the heat waves that we're getting in the summer, we did not get those growing up. We did not see these storms that we're seeing during those heat waves, which have caused, as we know, a lot of flooding. In 2021, we had Hurricane Ida, which caused a lot of flooding in New York City and led to some deaths. So we're seeing, a lot of climate hazards already that we really want to try to avoid. And the other thing that we're seeing is it's hurting our most vulnerable populations. So in terms of like air quality and pollution, we see that often impacts our low-income communities. Back to the flooding, who did that impact? People that are living in basements, that are often making those decisions for socioeconomic reasons. So it's happening. We need all hands on deck. And the other thing I'll add that is a big part of my kind of drive and a lot of what I do is and this also ties to the fact that I'm a CUNY alum, is, I started, like I said, I'm first generation. My parents didn't really guide me they didn't really have the resources to be able to guide me towards, what I should study in college. When I told them I was interested in environmental engineering, because I specifically wanted to focus on like climate change solutions, they were like, does that mean like you're gonna go try and like protect trees from cutting down? Like, how is that gonna make a living? Like, that's not part of the American dream that we signed up for. So, there's a lot of, I think, navigating this space for the first time for a lot of first generation people, or just folks that don't come from well-resourced households where like maybe their parents didn't go to college, because this is a really new and evolving field. So that's all to say, I kind of came into this blindly. I didn't really know how to navigate the space. And I find that a lot of other people find themselves in the same situation where they can't navigate the space. And I think that happens often with CUNY students, where we see such a huge representation of first generation, Americans, first generation college students. So what I've been trying to do also for the last, 7 years, once I started in the sustainability industry, and I saw that there was a lack of CUNY students, I saw that there was a lack of Latinx people like myself, is really try to elevate opportunities and exposure, try to really increase exposure to young people so that they understand what this broad sustainability industry entails, because we need diverse thinking in the sustainability industry if we have any chance of really fighting climate change. If we really are going to get to some solutions here, then like I said, we need all hands on deck. And what that means is we need diverse hands on deck. And so, yeah, I've spent the last 7 years, I started a group called Latinxs in Sustainability, which is primarily focused in New York, but we've gone national since COVID. And it's really meant to, again, increase awareness about this industry and increase exposure.
Wow. Okay. So I'm not oblivious to climate change, but what I don't know is I'm a college student right now. I'm halfway through a master's program.
Wonderful.
What I don't know is what the job market looks like in that arena, what the salaries are like. Is it a field I want to go to that would allow me to feed and support and elevate my family situation? I don't know anything like that as far as for the demographic that City Tutors caters to. Tell me about that. Tell us a little about that.
Well, first of all, the sustainability industry is so broad. There are so many careers within that. It's much broader than saying, like, I mean, even a lot of industry, I think, is very broad, but sustainability I find to be one of the broadest. I mean, you can have mechanical engineers that identify as working in the sustainability industry because they're working to design better buildings that are more efficient and therefore contribute less greenhouse gases. And that's sustainability. You also have people with policy background that are working in local city government or in, state government to help put together policy or programs that help, again, reduce greenhouse gases, help people make improvements. You could have people that work in electric vehicles. You have lawyers. There are a lot of professions within this career. Again, sticking to New York City, what I'd say is, New York City has been one of the leaders, has been super ambitious around climate change. And therefore, what I mean by ambition is setting ambitious targets, like goals, around, where they're going to be in terms of greenhouse gas reductions by 2050, where the electric grid is going to be by 2050, policies that help us get to those goals. So all of these things, all of these levers create jobs, right? Because if we're working towards a goal, that's going to mean we need a lot of retrofits in buildings. That's going to mean we need EV charging stations throughout the city. And there's that means that we're going to need better plans to mitigate waste. So all of these, working towards these ambitious goals is great for, I think, the workforce, the local workforce, because we're going to need these local jobs. But there's infinite jobs within this industry. And so the pay is also just is varied. I can't say that there is a some places pay better than other. And that's part of also being well exposed when you're younger, so that you can make more informed decisions about, what specific career track you want to follow, what organizations you want to start kind of, looking into, so that you maybe have a better chance of landing in an internship or a job there, because that they pay living wages that will keep you, where you want to be. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not a clear answer because it varies significantly.
Okay. Let's back up for a second. From Queens.
Yep.
Public school or private school?
Public school up until high school, and then private school.
And where did you go to high school?
St. Mary's in Manhasset, Long Island.
In Long Island, okay.
Yeah.
How far? What kind of trek is that? What type of commute was that?
I'm from Eastern Queens, so it wasn't bad. It was probably like 30 minutes.
Did you see a lot of kids that look like you?
No, there was not a lot of Latinx kids at St. Mary's.
Okay. What did you do for fun growing up?
Well, yeah, that's a good question too. Like I said, my parents are from Colombia, and growing up, it was cheaper to send us to Colombia for the entire summer than to have a babysitter. So I spent most of my summers until I was in mid-high school, spending the entire summer at my grandma's house in Colombia, which was a lot of fun, and definitely, shaped a lot of the way I view the world, and, made a lot of memorable, moments. And yeah, I mean, besides that, hang out with friends, kind of be a regular kid. I didn't really have hobbies, which is another thing. I think I picked up my hobbies later in life, like hiking. I wasn't exposed to hiking until I was like 25, and now it's become a huge passion of mine. So yeah, I guess what I did for fun, what I do for fun has evolved. And honestly, back to keep saying exposure, but back to exposure. I think the more you get exposed to things, the more you're able to really find what really interests you. And I hadn't been exposed to hiking or any type of kind of nature setting for a long time.
You said sent us to Colombia.
Me and my sister. I have an older sister, also CUNY alum. She went to Queens College, and yeah, we both got sent to Colombia every year.
Okay, so you graduate from high school. Your parents were immigrants from Colombia.
Yes.
You and your sister both went to college. What guided that?
Well, that's another story. Well, I think that the idea of college was always very clear, especially for my dad, as part of like the American dream trajectory. Like, we sacrificed everything. We came here so that you could have a better life. And part of that better life includes going to college. And, I think things can change now. I don't necessarily think that everyone needs to go to college. I think there's a lot of different career tracks that maybe don't require college that can still lead to a successful life. But I think for my parents and raising us with the limited knowledge of like how to navigate America, they felt like that was kind of the easiest way to ensure success, so that we would have an easier time than they did. But again, my college story is also one where it's clear that I didn't have a lot of guidance. Basically, I was in high school and I did well in math and science. And my advisor was like, okay, well, you should go into engineering or be a teacher. And I was like, that's it? That's the only options I have? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really have experience with kids. When I go to Colombia, I'm on the younger side of this massive family. So like, I don't have a lot of experience. That was my thinking. I don't have experience with young people. I don't know if I could handle being a teacher. It doesn't really call me. So I guess engineering it is. And I was like, okay, what kind of engineering? And I Googled it, and like civil engineering showed up, and I was like, I guess that's my future. And so I applied to some universities, and I ended up actually at Syracuse University for the first semester, which is a great school, but was a mistake for me. I couldn't afford, and I would have been, in debt for a significantly long time, longer than I wanted to, and longer than I understood at 18 years old when I was making this decision. So I was pretty ill-advised in terms of what college to attend and, what career to even follow. But luckily, so I started at Syracuse as a civil engineer major. Really quickly, I realized like, I don't want to be here. I want to go back home. I also was maybe wrapping my head around like what this debt was going to mean after 4 years. And I was like, I can't do this. And my sister's older, and she was already at CUNY. She made the same kind of mistake. She started at St. John's and then transferred to CUNY after a semester. So basically I was like, okay, I'm going to transfer to CUNY. City College was at the time, the only CUNY that was offering a civil engineering degree. So I transferred to City College, which was also tough. That was a 2-hour commute each way. So 4 hours a day commuting to City College. But yeah, so I started off as civil engineering, and then about a year and a half in, I watched this movie, An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore. It's Al Gore's like climate change movie. I don't know if folks have seen it, but I recommend it. The first one especially. And I watched that movie and I realized like, oh my goodness, climate change is one of the largest kind of crises of our time. I really want to focus on this and kind of put this like engineering problem solving, mind that I did think I was starting to nurture to use specifically for climate change and climate solutions. And so luckily City College had just started an environmental engineering program. And so I was able to transfer to the environmental engineering program. And then I graduated with that degree. But, and even at City College, I remember one time I was struggling in classes. The degree did not come easy to me. I think a lot of people at City College would say that the engineering degrees are challenging. They take 5 years. Almost no one gets out in 4 years. But I remember I was commuting 4 hours a day, and I was working part-time jobs, and the advisor was like, maybe this degree isn't for you. Like maybe this is too challenging for you and you should consider switching to something else. And luckily I decided not to. But looking back on it, I feel like even that was such harsh advice instead of looking at like the full picture. Like, oh, maybe it's because you are on a train 4 hours a day, and so you have less time to study. You're working part-time jobs because you need to survive. And so, I think through Latinx and sustainability and other speaking opportunities that I've had, I try to elevate that there needs to be a lot more, intentional kind of understanding of like the whole person, because not everyone is starting from the same place. Not everyone has the same opportunities. And so, yeah, some things are more challenging, but that doesn't necessarily mean give up. It's like, let's find a way to support these people that have these additional, in some cases burdens or just challenges, barriers. Let's find a way to help them instead of kind of discouraging them just because they're having some challenges.
So very insightful. I'm on campus, right now, not right this second, but the semester just ended yesterday, right?
Yeah.
But I'm taking classes right now. I just got my bachelor's 2 years ago after dropping out. So I'm on the front lines of college, of academia right now.
Yeah.
And so you didn't say who gave you that advice, what advisor, right?
Right.
I've spoken to, I know advisors who give that advice right now, right? Yeah. And I debate with them. I try to understand what they're thinking. I'm going to say this for the record. they're not saying it maliciously. They're saying it. This one person in particular, I've heard him say it 2 or 3 times. He works at City College, and I've heard him give that advice, and he thinks it's helpful advice. He thinks by him saying, maybe this isn't for you, right? He's guiding that person with challenges, 4-hour commute, full-time job, family, whatever. He's guiding them to pivot intentionally before it's too late and they have to pivot with no choice. So he's not saying it from a malicious place, but it sounds so wrong when I hear it. It sounds so wrong. Now, that being said, so what do you have to say to that person?
I hear you. And I'm not saying that some of the challenges that students faced were worth continuing. Like, some students, maybe it was the best advice to switch, to pivot, to find another degree. But I think there are a lot of students, especially at City College, but across the CUNY system, that are facing a lot of external challenges that add to the stress and the difficulties of navigating a college degree. And I don't think that's fair to have someone not pursue something that maybe they are, passionate about and disciplined and smart enough to do. However, because of all these external things, are having a harder time doing it. And so I'm not saying that, I don't know what the silver bullet solution is here for students, but I know that we need to work closer with these students to figure out ways to support them, because they're not starting from the same place that a lot of other students across the country are starting from. Like I said, they have, what percentage of City College students live on campus? Like 2%? Literally 2%, maybe. So the majority of them are commuters. I would say that a lot of them are working at least part-time jobs, right? So many people make the decision to go to CUNYs for socioeconomic reasons. So I forget the percentage of students that get like FAFSA or, financial aid. So, a lot of students at City College and CUNY across CUNY are starting from a very different place than other students. And we need to acknowledge that is part of the CUNY student body. So we cannot treat them as if they are different student bodies, right? That's part of it. That's part of the CUNY trajectory. And so if these students are showing that they're dedicated, passionate, but they just have these additional things that are part of their lives, let's figure out ways to work with that. Let's not discourage them, especially when they're passionate. Like I was really passionate about staying, doing something in this climate, in the sustainability industry. And I was being kind of told like, no, it's too hard for you. So move on. And I'm sure I'm not the only student that has felt that. So yeah, I think we need to figure out ways to work closer with students, find solutions that work for them and help them. Yeah, I mean, that to me is part of the new American dream. Let's help the kids of those folks that sacrifice so much to be here. Those students are sacrificing a lot too. They're navigating new waters. Let's help them.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. You really have no idea, but these are debates that I have them all semester long.
I'm sure.
And I also, because I went to school originally in the 80s and dropped out for 30 years, and I come back, and after the pandemic.
Wow.
Remember my generation facing the level of challenges that this generation is facing, particularly after some of them graduated high school on Zoom, right? Yeah. Zoom, had missed 2 years of social interaction, have no conflict resolution skills. So they run into these issues and then they come and shoot up the whole campus or something crazy, right? Mental health issues. There were so many things. I don't even remember hearing the term mental health in the 80s. Like that was not a thing in my recollection. But now it's obviously a thing. So now that being said, now you pile on being first generation, right? Now you pile on your parents came here, sacrificed everything, you're going to college.
Mhm.
And then you get there and you have no guidance, you have no mentorship, you have no whatever, you're fending for yourself. And imagine when you have, I'm not even going to imagine, I'm going to ask you, you're at Syracuse. You're feeling the water level rise. And now you have to explain it to your parents. What was that moment like?
Yeah, I've had a I've had a lot of these conversations with my parents when I decided to transfer out of Syracuse, when I decided to transfer from civil engineering to environmental engineering, which again, they thought was like a tree hugging career. When I've left any job that I've had, it's all been a similar conversation, like, a huge fear about security. Like, are you sure this is the right decision? Kind of like the unknown is far worse, scarier than even continuing in a place that you are no longer happy in or no longer see growth or something, right? Like this sense of security and yeah, just kind of staying still, keeping your head down and just trucking along regardless of anything else is a big thing. And I get it. I get why they have that mentality. And I know it comes kind of like what you were saying before, it doesn't come from a place of malice. It is genuinely because they are seeking the best for me and they want to be supportive. But that is different from being best prepared to give that advice, and that's why. So yeah, those conversations were difficult. When I told them I wanted to transfer, they were like, how are you going to leave this good school? Like this will help get you that job, whatever. Like, we'll figure out the debt. They didn't even know what the heck they were talking about. They didn't understand like the magnitude of debt that I would have been at after 4 years of Syracuse. Like massive. I'd be still definitely paying it off, 10 plus years later. They didn't really understand that because again, they didn't have those resources to understand student debt and student loans. So, I think and luckily I had an older sister who had to navigate these waters even more alone than I did. And she was able to provide me guidance of like, look at CUNYs. CUNYs are affordable. You're a New York City resident. It's affordable for you. A lot of things that I wouldn't have, that it was hard to figure out. And I know that now we have the internet and you could find everything, but you don't know what you don't know, first of all. Second of all, again, when talking about a lot of students who have so much more on their plate, they don't have infinite time to Google the answers to everything. Like research takes time. That's why it's a full-time job for people. So, that's all to say, I think it is critical to find mentors. It's especially for folks that really lack any type of guidance when it comes to professional development, college, career, all of that. When that's lacking at home, it's even more critical that you seek people, even and a mentor could be someone that's a year older than you that just went through the process themselves, but has a little bit more insight than you have, and starting to collect a little bit more insight can really make a huge difference in the choices you make. And so that was what was, helpful for me. I had my older sister. Because of my engineering degree, I was familiar with a group called the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, which is an incredible group, which really is meant to serve as mentoring and building a community to help you because they understand these nuances. I'm sure that there's so many other groups out there and more so today. As I said, the group that we started, Latinxs in Sustainability, is meant to do the same, more specifically for people in the sustainability industry. So yeah, seeking mentors is critical. It needs to be done in order to really mitigate and lessen those barriers and there's challenges and figure out ways to navigate this space that, yeah, for so many of us is our new waters.
Absolutely. Okay, so final two questions.
Yeah.
You graduate with your bachelor's. Was it a no-brainer for you to go for your master's?
A little bit, yeah. It mostly came from because, in that last year of my undergrad, I did a capstone, which often happens at least for the engineering school at City College. The last year, you part of one of your classes is this capstone project. And so we did a capstone project, and I got really lucky that this group already had a project and they were like, we just need a fourth member. Are you in? And I was like, perfect. And they had this project that was all about New York City buildings and how we were going to reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gases from New York City buildings. And that really blew my mind, because now I was, I had known I wanted to work in sustainability and in climate change solutions, but this last year made me realize, like, oh my God, I want to work specifically on New York City buildings, because that's 70% of the problem in New York City. And again, as a born and raised New Yorker, I was like, no one cares more about the success of New York City than a New Yorker. So I was like all in, but I realized in that year, like, oh, I have so much more to learn about this space, this specific space, which is like buildings and energy efficiency and how that's impacting New York City. And because I already, by this point I had moved, I was living across the street from City College. So I wasn't doing the 4-hour commute anymore. I had 2 part-time jobs. So I was able to survive. I was like, you know what? I'm kind of in a good swing of things to be able to, I'm privileged enough right now to be able to continue my studies, and because if you go to your master's, your loans get kind of postponed until you finish. So I was like, I don't need to get that real job yet because my loans aren't kicking in. And so, yeah, so it was a little bit of a no-brainer. It definitely wasn't part of what I was hearing from my parents. I was the first in my extended family to get a master's degree, of those that live in America. So it wasn't something I was hearing from them, but it was something that I decided, like, if I really want to become the best professional in this specific space, then I need to learn a little bit more.
Okay, so part 2 to that question, and the final question. Was it difficult? After you got your master's degree, was it difficult to find a job?
It was so difficult.
Really?
Yeah. And that is, I keep coming to the same things, like mentoring, finding these groups that help you navigate this space. But long story short, yeah, it was a rude awakening when I graduated with a master's from City College in environmental engineering. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have any job I want in this space because, I've done what I've been told gets you your foot in the door, which is like, education. And now I've gone above and beyond and I have a master's in it. Who's going to turn me down? Everyone turned me down. Yes, everyone turned me down. And so it was, it was difficult because then now I was running up against these loans are going to start kicking in, and they're loans of a bachelor's and a master's. Again, luckily they're CUNY loans. And so they were much more affordable than others, but still these loans were starting to kick in and I was starting to freak out. And eventually, I applied and applied. I didn't get any callbacks. I didn't even get any interviews. It was so heartbreaking. Honestly, it was heartbreaking because I felt like I had done all the right things. Why was I being turned down? And eventually my dad has worked in the restaurant industry since he got to this country. He's worked at a restaurant on the Upper East Side, and he's always been very proud of, my sister and I going to college. My sister's an accountant. I'm an engineer, and he will talk about us to anyone that will listen. And, thank God he does that, because one customer at the restaurant was like, oh, if your daughter has an engineering degree, I can get her an internship. And so luckily that was how I got my first internship with Turner Construction in the city. And so I did a couple of internships while I was in college with them. And so when I graduated and I could not get a job in sustainability, and again, eventually these loans were starting to kick in, they were starting to knock on my door. I reached out to Turner, and luckily I had really, successful internships. And so I worked there, and it was an incredible company. I think it's a diverse company. Even back in 2015, they had ERGs, where I think a lot of companies today don't even know how to support, their diverse employees. But Turner was wonderful. It just wasn't exactly what I was passionate about, right? I really had it clear that I wanted to be working in climate change, and I couldn't get my damn foot in the door. So I ended up working at Turner for a couple of years, and again, great company, love them. It just wasn't exactly what I wanted. And then a couple of years in, I was like, I got to try again. I got to try to get, I'm like settled in, I have some savings. I can figure this out if I need to take a pay cut, but I want to get my foot in the sustainability industry. This is what I, went to school for, got a master's for. So again, I tried to apply, nothing, because now my experience is all construction. So I really wasn't getting any callbacks. And finally I reached out to, a professor that had been my thesis mentor while I was in my master's, and he helped me get connected to a few interviews, which ultimately led to me breaking into this industry. And I share that story because it's not the way I wish that things would have happened. And I recognize it's the only way I got my foot in the door. But I recognize that person can't do this for everyone, right? That's just, that is not a sustainable model, to have to get someone to bring you into the closed circle. So we need to be, anyone that's in the sustainability industry needs to be really understanding and thoughtful about what are the barriers to entry into this industry. Why does it seem to be, historically such a privileged white one? There are clearly barriers to entry. Let's acknowledge them, recognize them, and fix them. Because, we talk about workforce, we talk about diversity, but clearly there's a challenge. And so long story short, that's how it happened for me. And I need to be very transparent about that, because that can't be the solution for everyone. And I think part of it had to do with, I had CUNY degrees, and I was competing with folks from Columbia, from NYU. And I think oftentimes CUNY folks are at a disadvantage. And again, what that brings me to is, well, we need to look at the full picture of this person, right? Again, most people choose CUNY for socioeconomic reasons. So if you are not looking at CUNY students, then you really are discriminating against a huge cohort of local New Yorkers for socioeconomic reasons. And so, yeah, so we do it through Latinx and sustainability and other platforms where I've had the chance. I try to elevate the story and try to elevate the story of like what I think a lot of CUNY students face. And luckily, last thing I'll say, sorry, is, in my last job at the New York City Mayor's Office of Sustainability, they were incredibly also like understanding and acknowledging like, oh, there is a CUNY gap. We aren't seeing that many CUNY students. And so we created a workforce program that specifically trained CUNY students and helped match them to internships, because we know internships, can be such are critical to getting your foot in the door. And now through Latinxs and sustainability, we are launching a class next semester at City College, where each class, so there's 2 classes per week for a semester, each class has someone from the industry come in. They're a guest lecturer. They're going to really talk about their career trajectory, what their career looks like, what their job looks like day to day, kind of what's happening in the industry today, so that these students graduate with a much better understanding of like what's happening kind of in real time, who are the organizations they should look for, and also, just trying to start to make connections and bring hands together between industry and CUNY, because to me, CUNY feels like the most untapped potential of local New Yorkers, and especially in climate change. Why wouldn't we want the people who live here, who are personally connected, to seeing the success of this city? It feels like those are the people we should want at the table.
Ah, very nice. Oh my goodness, you hit all the points, and you're shooting and you're scoring. I appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
So now my really last question is going to be: we talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
What did we leave out? Is there anything that's important to you that you're going to get off this interview and say, you know what, I wish I had said this?
I don't think so. I think I've said enough times the points that I want to get to, which is, for young people, especially, seek mentors, seek groups that are, that are trying to support your community. And that might be your specific community or more broadly, but there are groups out there that I think are being really intentional about support and navigating new spaces. And especially, again, I'm in the sustainability industry, so that's more what I understand. But in the sustainability industry, there's a lot of groups very intentional about supporting people. And yeah, I mean, if a CUNY person is listening, find other CUNY people, find other CUNY alum. No one wants to support CUNY more than CUNY alum. We should be building, a crazy coalition in New York City of CUNY students and CUNY alum. I believe, like I said, I think that we are untapped potential. We are a force to be reckoned with. And yeah, I mean, I look forward to the day where CUNY students and New Yorkers are equally represented in all the jobs that we see across New York City.
Beautiful. Miss Cristina, thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you for your time. Your story is it's a magical story. I don't know if you even realize it, but it's a magical story. I can relate. I'm, like I said, I'm on the front lines of these students right now. And I know I have a luxury. Like, I don't take the train. I haven't ridden the train, and I committed. I remember as a young man commuting from the Bronx to Brooklyn Tech.
Yeah.
Every day for high school, and then commuting to City College, going up those hills, going up those steps.
Yep.
Bus and one train switching to come back uptown, or the 45 bus, or going up those and riding my bike. I remember those days. So now I'm a little privileged, and I just drive. I drive everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about subway and transfers and delays like that. So I know I live with a luxury, but I'm here planting my flag for CUNY and perpetuating this conversation and this dialogue. So I appreciate so many things that you said, and I thank you. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating this platform so that folks can share.
Absolutely. I'll see you on the next one, okay?
Okay.